Well, Americana was a labor of love. Over the years, when I was out on the road, I would pop off a couple of pictures of interesting scenes, like an old gas station or an old barn, right? And I put those into a sort of little section of my oeuvre, which I called Americana, and I posted a few of them on my old rudimentary websites over the years, and I thought, well, you know, maybe someday it would make a nice book, maybe I'll publish it myself or whatever. And eventually, after I did the Galapagos Birds book, I said to myself, well, my publisher is so great, Goff Books, and Gordon Goff, the owner of the publishing house, he seems to be a really nice fellow and supportive. I'm a little nervous because I don't want to get rejected, but it may be the time to ask about this Americana book. And fortunately, he said yes. So I had had all of the pictures in my files. I didn't have to go out and take anything for it. But the ones I used predominantly were the ones that I took in 2009 when I was on a number of trips around the country, especially up in Vermont and New York, and even Hawaii. And most of the Americana stuff was from that. When I got my Canon 7D in 2012, I didn't take much Americana anymore because I was doing bird photography almost entirely and publishing, you know, the backyard bird photography, then the art of hummingbird gardening, and the art of butterfly gardening. And I had to take pictures for those hummingbird and butterfly books too, where I had them in, you know, I had to take more pictures to fill it out, right? So there was, between 2012 and 2015, I was totally preoccupied with the nature photography. And then after that, I mean, it's not like I take street photography like, you know, Joel Meyerowitz or people like that, or, you know, that's not my niche. So it's just, if I happen to be out and I see an interesting piece of Americana, I'll take a little bit of time and photograph it, but I'm not going out there for that express purpose. So it just so happened that I had a number of these pictures, and I was lucky enough to have a publisher that was willing to do it. Well, I did research on photography. I knew a lot about it, not as much as I could, but I knew a fair amount about it. And I'd heard of this guy, Frank, and so I decided to dig a little bit deeper into what he was all about. I don't remember if this was before or after I got the book deal, quite frankly. But when I explored his book of the 83 images that came out in 1959, I said to myself, well, why don't I do 83? I could have done 100. I usually like round numbers. Let's do a book of 100 pictures, right? But I said, you know what? This guy made a mark of photographing America. He was Swiss, he was an emigre, but he was an outsider. And I thought, well, nobody in the last, I don't know, 20 years has really done anything like what Frank did. I mean, you just don't see it. He had a very nice little format. It wasn't a big coffee table book, and every picture is a classic. And I said, well, why don't I do a book like that? The same trim, so you could put it, trim means the dimensions of a book, and then you could put it side by side with his book, The Americans. And so then I just took 17 pictures out of my collection and narrowed it down to 83. The 17 are my outtakes. And then I decided to mention that it was basically a tribute to Frank in my introduction, and discuss the concept of my spin, which is more of an optimistic view of America. I don't have a cynical view of America. Frank came along at a time where there was a lot of, you know, racial tension. Of course, there still is, but back then, before even the Civil Rights Act in 1955 was when he actually took the pictures. My spin is to look for a little bit more of the humor as well. For example, I have one photograph of two young girls on Waikiki Beach, and they're at a roadside, at a little jewelry cart on the side of the sidewalk, right? But there's like a what do you call it, a curtain coming down right to where their butts are, basically. And what you see is their legs. You see these 4 girls' legs, because they're wearing shorts. Of course, it's hot. And so I named the picture Hiding. But you can tell that it's a jewelry concession, too. You know, I don't know if Frank would have been interested in that picture or not, but to me, that was very charming. No, that's the amazing thing. This is why I'm telling you, I mean, I think they're excellent pictures, but the equipment was about as primitive as you could get in the digital age. It was the original digital Rebel from Canon, and I wandered around the country popping off shots. Nothing handheld, nothing special going on there. Remembering my 2009 trip, I had gone back to Vermont and took a trip down from Vermont to New York on the 13th of June, which was Flag Day. I was on a mission to go see John Burroughs' family home, Woodchuck Lodge in Roxbury, and then Slabside's cabin, just down in West Park. And I did them both in the same day, and I did take a couple of thousand pictures of those homes. That was late in the afternoon, but I started at like 6 or 7 in the morning up in Montpelier area, Calais, Vermont, and I drove down through Rutland and then went over to New York and then cut down into the Catskills, right? And along the way, because it was Flag Day, there were these flag-like patriotic ornaments on some of these buildings. So I took a few of the pictures that are in the book, especially the cover shot, the big American flag on the barn. So that, to me, is the seminal event of this book, was that day. If I hadn't had that day, I don't think the book would be what it is. Well, I think I say it in the afterword, or in the introduction. It's a tribute to the perseverance and the spirit of Americans. Today, I think we're too, not we, but I think the media and the culture is too down on itself. It's a great country and has great people in it. Some of us are flawed, none of us are perfect. And what I wanted to show was the optimism and the spirit of America. And like I mentioned about that vendor, I mean, he's not exactly getting rich, he's not going to be world famous, but that guy was having the time of his life that night. And if you can capture that without being phony about it, without being Chamber of Commerce, to show the reality, I think that's makes me feel good that I put those types of things in the book, whether it's an inanimate object or not. I mean, I have a picture of a food cart up in Montpelier, the vendor isn't there. But you know that he's put his heart and soul into that enterprise.